The year was 7248 on the galactic calendar, a time when humanity had become little more than a legend whispered among the stars. For 5,000 years, Earth and its people had been silent, hidden away from the rest of the galaxy. After the catastrophic event known as the Great Collapse, humanity retreated into isolation, cutting off all contact with other civilizations. To most species in the galaxy, humans were nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale told to younglings about a race that once thrived, but vanished without explanation. On board the interstellar vessel Aegis, Captain Ji-ho stood staring at a holographic display floating above his desk. His dark eyes narrowed as he read the message that had just arrived through an ancient communication channel. It was written in Old Terran, a language long forgotten outside Earth's borders. The words glowed faintly against the dim lighting of his quarters. To the remnants of Earth, your silence ends now. Rally to arms against the devourer or face extinction once more. Ji-ho leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Who could have sent this? And why now after so many centuries of silence? He knew the message wasn't meant for him alone. It was addressed to all of humanity. But how could they respond when no one even knew what the devourer was? He called for his senior officers to meet in the briefing room immediately. As they gathered around the circular table, Lieutenant Subin took her seat beside Engineer Minsu. Both looked concerned, though neither spoke until Ji-ho activated the hologram projector at the center of the table. The message appeared again, hovering in midair like a ghostly apparition. This came in less than an hour ago, Ji-ho began, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. It's in Old Terran, which means whoever sent it knows we're still out here. Subin frowned, leaning forward slightly. She was a brilliant strategist, known for her sharp mind and calm demeanor under pressure. Do we know where it came from? She asked. Ji-ho nodded. There are coordinates embedded in the transmission. They lead to a location near the edge of our sector. Minsu, who sat quietly fiddling with a small tool in his hands, finally spoke up. Sir, do you think this might be a trap? We've been isolated for millennia. Why would anyone reach out to us now unless they wanted something? It's possible, Ji-ho admitted. But if there's even a chance this is real, if someone really needs our help, then we can't ignore it. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Humanity had spent thousands of years rebuilding itself behind closed doors, healing the wounds left by the Great Collapse. Now suddenly they were being summoned to war. Against whom and why? After several moments of deliberation, Ji-ho made his decision. We'll follow the coordinates, he said firmly. If this turns out to be a threat, we'll deal with it. But if it's legitimate, well, maybe it's time humanity stepped back onto the galactic stage. The journey to the designated location took 3 days. During that time, the crew prepared themselves for whatever awaited them. Weapons systems were checked, shields reinforced, and emergency protocols reviewed. Everyone aboard the Aegis felt the tension hanging heavy in the air. This mission felt different from anything they'd done before. It wasn't just about exploration or diplomacy. It was about survival. When they arrived, what they found was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. The coordinates led them to a derelict space station orbiting a dying star. Its metallic surface was scarred with age, pockmarked by micrometeorites and radiation exposure over countless centuries. Despite its ruined state, the structure bore unmistakable signs of human design. Is this ours? Subin asked softly as the Aegis approached the station. It has to be, Ji-ho replied. Look at the architecture. Those are Earth-standard docking bays. As they boarded the station, the sense of unease grew stronger. Dust covered every surface and the air inside was stale and cold. Their footsteps echoed eerily through empty corridors lined with rusted walls and broken equipment. Yet amidst the decay, they discovered something extraordinary. A massive vault sealed tight with biometric locks designed to recognize human DNA. Lieutenant Subin volunteered to activate the lock, placing her palm against the cold metal surface. There was a low hum as the mechanism scanned her genetic code, followed by a series of clicks and hisses as the vault door slid open. Inside, they found a recording device, a simple black cube resting on a pedestal. Ji-ho picked it up carefully and activated it. A holographic figure materialized before them, dressed in military attire from humanity's golden age. The woman introduced herself as Commander Yun-ji, her voice calm yet urgent. To whoever finds this, she began, if you are seeing this message, then we failed. The alliance is gone, shattered by betrayal and greed. The Devourer has returned, and only humanity possesses the knowledge and technology to stop it. Within this vault, you will find everything you need to fight back. Use it wisely, for the fate of the galaxy rests in your hands. Her final words sent chills down their spines. Remember, trust no one, not even those who claim to be allies. As the recording ended, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Outside, unknown ships emerged from hyperspace. Surrounding the Aegis, a voice crackled over the comms, demanding they surrender the contents of the vault. Jiho exchanged a glance with Subin and Minsu. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was clear. Humanity's return to the galaxy would not be peaceful. And so, with danger closing in and questions swirling in their minds, the crew of the Aegis braced themselves for what promised to be the beginning of a new chapter in human history. One filled with uncertainty, conflict, and perhaps redemption. The alarms blared louder, their shrill sound reverberating through the derelict space station. Outside, the unknown ships had surrounded the Aegis, their sleek designs and glowing engines marking them as alien vessels. The voice over the comms repeated its demand, cold and unyielding. Surrender the contents of the vault or face destruction. Captain Jiho clenched his jaw, his mind racing. He glanced at Lieutenant Subin and Engineer Minsu, who stood beside him in the dimly lit chamber. The holographic figure of Commander Unji had vanished, leaving behind only the black cube that contained her message. Her final warning, trust no one, echoed in Jiho's mind. We don't have much time, Jiho said, breaking the tense silence. Whoever they are, they're not here to negotiate. Minsu adjusted his glasses, his fingers tapping nervously against the tool he still held. Sir, we need to decide quickly. If we hand over the vault, we might lose our only chance to understand what's going on. But if we fight, we're outnumbered. Subin stepped forward, her expression calm but determined. We can't give up the vault, not yet. Whatever is inside could be the key to understanding this devourer, and why humanity was called back into the galaxy after 5,000 years of silence. Jiho nodded. Agreed, we hold our ground for now. Let's see what these strangers want before making any decisions. He activated the comm system, addressing the unknown fleet. This is Captain Jiho of the human vessel Aegis. Identify yourselves and explain your presence here. There was a brief pause before the response came. This is Admiral Kyung-soo of the Zenari Collective. We represent the remnants of the Galactic Alliance. You have something that belongs to us. Hand it over, or we will take it by force. The name struck a chord with Jiho, the Zenari Collective, according to fragmented records from Earth's archives, was one of the few known factions that had survived the collapse of the Galactic Alliance. They were rumored to be powerful, technologically advanced, and deeply distrustful of outsiders. Yet here they were, claiming ownership of something humanity had just discovered. Admiral Kyung-soo, Jiho replied, choosing his words carefully. We are not thieves. This vault contains artifacts of human origin. Before we discuss anything further, I suggest we meet face to face to resolve this peacefully. Another pause followed, longer this time. Finally, Kyung-soo responded. Very well. Send a shuttle with 3 representatives. Come unarmed, or we will consider it an act of hostility. Jiho turned to his crew. Lieutenant Subin, Engineer Minsu, you're with me. Let's go. The shuttle ride to the Zainari flagship was tense. The alien ships loomed large outside the windows, their dark hulls adorned with intricate patterns that shimmered faintly under the light of the dying star. Jiho sat silently, his hands gripping the armrests of his seat. Beside him, Subin reviewed the recording of Commander Unji's message on a handheld device, while Minsu tinkered absent-mindedly with his tool, muttering calculations under his breath. When they docked, they were escorted into a grand chamber aboard the Zenari flagship. Admiral Kyung-soo awaited them, flanked by 2 heavily armed guards. His appearance was striking. He was tall, with pale skin and sharp features, dressed in ornate armor that gleamed under the soft glow of overhead lights. Despite his regal demeanor, there was an edge of suspicion in his piercing gaze. You are humans, Kyung-soo stated, his tone neutral but probing. Your kind has been absent for millennia. Why have you returned? Jiho stepped forward, meeting the Admiral's gaze without flinching. We didn't choose to return. Someone sent us a message, an urgent call for help. We traced it to that station where we found the vault. Its contents are clearly of human origin. which raises questions about your claim to ownership. Kyung-soo's lips tightened into a thin line. The vault predates your isolation. It was created during the height of the Galactic Alliance when humanity played a central role. When you abandoned us, you left behind many things, including knowledge vital to our survival. Subin interjected, her voice steady. With respect, Admiral, humanity's retreat was not a betrayal. We faced unimaginable challenges during the Great Collapse. Whatever knowledge remains in that vault may hold answers to the threat facing us now. The Devourer. At the mention of the Devourer, Kyung-soo's expression darkened. He gestured for his guards to step aside, then walked closer to the humans. You know of the Devourer? How? It was mentioned in the recording we found, Ji-ho explained. Commander Yoonji warned us about it. She said only humanity could stop it. Kyung-soo studied them for a moment as if weighing their sincerity. Finally, he sighed. Very well. Perhaps there is truth to your claims. But know this, the Devourer is real and it is coming. It consumes entire planets, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. Our scouts report sightings near the edge of our territory. Time is running out. Min-soo spoke up, his curiosity getting the better of him. If the Devourer is such a dire threat, why didn't you contact us sooner? Why wait until now? Kyung-soo's eyes narrowed. Because humanity has always been unpredictable. Your sudden reappearance raises concerns. Can we trust you to stand with us, or will you abandon us again when the tide turns against us? The question hung heavy in the air. Ji-ho hesitated, knowing the weight of history rested on his shoulders. Admiral, I cannot speak for all of humanity, but I can promise you this. My crew and I will do everything in our power to stop the Devourer. However, we need your cooperation and your trust to succeed. Kyung-soo considered this for a long moment before nodding slowly. Very well. We will share intelligence with you and assist in deciphering the contents of the vault. But make no mistake, if you betray us, there will be consequences. Back aboard the Aegis, the crew worked tirelessly to analyze the data retrieved from the vault. Inside were blueprints for advanced weapon systems, defensive technologies, and detailed schematics of structures unlike anything they had ever seen. Some of the files were corrupted, their contents lost to time, but others painted a chilling picture of a weapon designed specifically to combat the Devourer. Subin pored over the documents, her brow furrowed in concentration. These weapons are unlike anything we've encountered, she murmured. They seem to harness energy on a scale far beyond current technology. Min-soo nodded, examining a schematic of what appeared to be a massive cannon. Look at this. It's powered by some kind of quantum core. If we could replicate it, we might stand a chance against the Devourer. But as they delved deeper into the data, unsettling questions began to arise. Many of the files referenced experiments conducted on humans, genetic modifications, neural enhancements, and even attempts to create living weapons. Min-soo frowned as he pieced together fragments of information buried within the archives. Captain, he said quietly, pulling Ji-ho aside, I think I've found something disturbing. These experiments, they weren't just theoretical. They were carried out on actual people, and judging by the dates, they happened shortly before humanity's retreat. Ji-ho's stomach churned at the revelation. Are you saying the Great Collapse wasn't just an accident? That it was caused by these experiments? I'm not sure yet, Min-soo admitted. But whatever happened, it must have been catastrophic enough to drive humanity into hiding for 5,000 years. As the pieces of the puzzle began to come together, Ji-ho couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The Zenari seemed willing to cooperate for now, but their motives remained unclear. And the more they learned about the vault's contents, the more it felt like they were unraveling secrets humanity wasn't meant to rediscover. Yet despite the risks, Ji-ho knew they had no choice. The Devourer was coming, and humanity's fate depended on whether they could unlock the mysteries of the past in time to face the horrors of the future. For now, all they could do was prepare, and hope they wouldn't repeat the mistakes of their ancestors. The days that followed were a blur of activity aboard the Aegis. The crew worked tirelessly to adapt the ancient blueprints from the vault into functional technology. Lieutenant Subin led the effort, her sharp mind piecing together fragments of information like a master puzzle solver. Engineer Min-soo spent hours in the engine room, tinkering with prototypes and running simulations. Meanwhile, Captain Ji-ho coordinated with Admiral Kyung-soo of the Zenari Collective, trying to maintain a fragile alliance between two civilizations that had grown apart over millennia. Despite their shared goal of stopping the Devourer, trust remained elusive. The Zenari provided resources and technical support, but their interactions were guarded. Every conversation felt like walking on thin ice, with both sides wary of revealing too much or giving away an advantage. Ji-ho couldn't shake the feeling that Kyung-soo was hiding something important. One evening, as the crew gathered for a brief respite in the mess hall, Subin approached Ji-ho with a concerned look on her face. She held a datapad in one hand, its screen glowing faintly in the dim light. "Captain," she began, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I've been reviewing the data we got from the Zenari archives. There's something strange." Ji-ho raised an eyebrow. "Strange how?" Subin hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "They've been manipulating other species, spreading misinformation about humanity. Some factions believe we're responsible for creating the Devourer in the first place." Ji-ho frowned. "That's ridiculous. We've been isolated for 5,000 years. How could we have created anything like that?" "I know," Subin replied quickly, "but it makes sense when you think about it. If they can turn others against us, they keep humanity weak and dependent on them. It's a way to control us." Ji-ho clenched his fists beneath the table, anger simmering just below the surface. He had suspected the Zenari weren't being entirely honest, but this went beyond mere distrust. It was outright manipulation. "Do you think Kyung-soo knows about this?" "I don't know," Subin admitted. "But if he does, it means we're dealing with someone who sees humanity as both a weapon and a threat. Someone who wants to use us while keeping us at arm's length." Ji-ho nodded slowly, his mind racing. They needed to tread carefully. Confronting Kyung-soo directly could escalate tensions and jeopardize their cooperation, but staying silent wasn't an option either. Humanity had returned to the galaxy after centuries of silence. They couldn't afford to be pawns in someone else's game. Later that night, Ji-ho called Min-soo to his quarters. The engineer entered looking tired but alert, clutching a small device in his hands. "You wanted to see me, sir?" he asked, taking a seat across from Ji-ho. "Yes," Ji-ho said, leaning forward. "I need your help with something." "Off the record." Min-soo blinked, surprised by the request. "Of course, Captain. What do you need?" Ji-ho handed him a secure data chip. "This contains everything we've recovered from the vault so far. I want you to analyze it independently. Look for anything unusual, things the Zenari might have missed or deliberately hidden." Min-soo nodded, understanding the gravity of the task. "Understood, sir. But may I ask why?" "Because I don't trust them," Ji-ho said bluntly. "Something feels off about this whole situation. And if there's even a chance they're using us, I need to know before it's too late." Min-soo accepted the chip, his expression serious. "I'll get started right away." Over the next few days, tensions between the humans and the Zenari grew palpable. Kyung-soo became increasingly insistent that the Aegis join his fleet for a reconnaissance mission near the edge of Zenari territory. Scouts had reported increased activity in the region, suggesting the Devourer was drawing closer. While Ji-ho agreed that time was critical, he couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that the mission might be a setup. During one particularly heated discussion, Kyung-soo's patience finally snapped. "Enough delays," he barked over the comms. "If you truly intend to fight the Devourer, then prove it. Join us now or stay out of our way." Ji-ho met the Admiral's glare through the holographic display. "We're not delaying, Admiral. We're preparing. Rushing into battle without proper planning will only lead to disaster." Kyung-soo leaned back in his chair, his tone dripping with contempt. "Is that what humanity has become? Cowards hiding behind excuses? Fine, stay here and tinker with your toys. See if the Devourer grants you mercy." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Ji-ho seething. He turned to Subin, who stood nearby. "He's testing us," Ji-ho muttered. "Trying to push us into making a mistake. He's also buying time," Subin added. "For what, I'm not sure. But whatever it is, it can't be good." Meanwhile, Min-soo made a startling discovery. Late one night, while poring over the data chip Ji-ho had given him, he uncovered encrypted files buried deep within the vault's archives. These files contained detailed logs of experiments conducted on humans, not just genetic modifications, but attempts to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence. One entry caught his attention. Subject H7 displayed unprecedented neural activity after exposure to dark matter resonance field. Potential applications for planetary-scale weaponry remain theoretical but promising. Min-Su's blood ran cold. He cross-referenced the dates with historical records and realized these experiments coincided with the rise of the Devourer. It wasn't just a biological entity, it was partially engineered, a fusion of organic and synthetic components designed to consume entire worlds. He rushed to Jiho's quarters, bursting in without knocking. "Captain, you need to see this," he said breathlessly, holding up the datapad. Jiho took the device and skimmed through the information. His face darkened as the implications sank in. "So that's why they blame us," he murmured. "They think we created the Devourer as a weapon, lost control of it, and then fled." "But we didn't," Min-Su insisted. "These experiments predate humanity's isolation. Someone else must have been involved." Jiho nodded grimly. "Which means Kyung-Su isn't telling us everything. If the Zenari knew about these experiments all along, they've been using the Devourer as a scapegoat to justify their hostility toward humanity." As dawn broke over the horizon, Jiho called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. He laid out everything they had discovered, the Zenari's manipulations, the true nature of the Devourer, and the disturbing experiments hidden in the vault's archives. The room fell silent as the weight of the revelation settled over them. "We have two choices," Jiho said finally. "We can continue playing along with the Zenari, hoping they'll share enough information to stop the Devourer, or we can strike out on our own and risk alienating our only allies." Subin spoke up first. "If we go alone, we'll lose access to their resources. But if we stay and they betray us," she trailed off, letting the unspoken consequences hang in the air. Min-Su chimed in. "There's another option. We use their resources until we're ready, then break away when the time is right. It's risky, but it gives us a fighting chance." Jiho considered their words carefully. In the end, he knew what had to be done. "Then it's decided. We'll cooperate for now, but we prepare for the worst. Humanity's survival depends on it." As the Aegis prepared to join the Zenari fleet for the upcoming mission, Jiho couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was far from clear. One thing was certain: the road ahead would be fraught with danger, deception, and difficult choices. And somewhere in the shadows, the Devourer loomed ever closer, its hunger growing stronger with each passing day. The Aegis joined the Zenari fleet at the edge of their territory, where the stars seemed dimmer, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The mission was simple on paper: scout the area for signs of the Devourer and gather intelligence. But everyone aboard the human vessel knew it was anything but simple. The tension between humanity and the Zenari hung heavy in the air, a fragile truce held together by necessity rather than trust. Admiral Kyung-Su greeted Captain Jiho over the comms as the ships formed a defensive formation. His tone was curt, almost dismissive. "You're late," he said without preamble. "We've already detected unusual energy readings ahead. Be ready to move at my command." Jiho clenched his jaw but kept his voice calm. "Understood, Admiral. We'll follow your lead, for now." Kyung-Su didn't respond, cutting the transmission abruptly. Jiho turned to Lieutenant Subin, who stood beside him on the bridge. "Keep an eye on their movements," he instructed. "If they try anything, I want to know about it." Subin nodded, her fingers flying over the console as she synced the Aegis's sensors with those of the Zenari fleet. "Their ships are positioned strategically," she observed. "Almost like they're expecting trouble from us." Min-Su, who had been quietly monitoring the ship's systems, chimed in. "Or maybe they're expecting trouble from something else entirely. Either way, we're not the only ones keeping secrets." As the fleet moved deeper into uncharted space, the first signs of the Devourer began to appear. Strange distortions rippled through the void, bending light and warping gravity. The sensors picked up faint traces of dark matter, an ominous signature that matched the descriptions in the vault's archives. "This is it," Subin whispered, her eyes glued to the holographic display. "Whatever the Devourer is, it's close." The Zenari ships fanned out, scanning the area with advanced equipment. Minutes passed in tense silence before Kyung-Su's voice crackled over the comms again. "We've located its trail. Follow us, but stay back. This thing is dangerous," Jiho frowned. "Dangerous how? What exactly are we dealing with?" There was a pause before Kyung-Su replied, his tone unusually somber. It consumes everything in its path: planets, stars, entire solar systems. Nothing escapes it. And once it senses prey, it doesn't stop until there's nothing left. The word sent a chill down Jiho's spine. He glanced at his crew, seeing the same unease reflected in their faces. Humanity had returned to the galaxy after centuries of isolation, only to find itself facing a threat unlike any other. The fleet followed the trail to a desolate region of space littered with debris, remnants of worlds that had once thrived. Floating chunks of rock and metal drifted aimlessly, caught in the gravitational pull of what appeared to be a massive black hole. But this wasn't a natural phenomenon. The swirling vortex pulsed with dark energy, emitting low-frequency vibrations that resonated through the hull of the Aegis. "It's beautiful," Minsu murmured, staring at the swirling mass on the main screen, "and terrifying." "Beautiful or not, it's deadly," Jiho said firmly. "Stay sharp, everyone. We don't know what we're walking into." Suddenly, the sensors lit up with activity. A shadow emerged from the vortex, a colossal form that defied comprehension. It was larger than any ship, larger than any planet. Its surface shimmered with shifting patterns of dark matter, and tendrils of energy extended outward like grasping arms. "The Devourer." Subin breathed, her voice barely audible. The creature, if it could even be called that, moved slowly at first, as if testing its surroundings. Then, with startling speed, it surged toward the nearest Zainari vessel. The ship tried to evade, firing weapons that seemed insignificant against the Devourer's overwhelming size. In seconds, the vessel was engulfed, vanishing into the creature's core. Panic erupted across the fleet. Ships scattered, trying to escape the Devourer's reach, but it was relentless. Wherever it went, destruction followed. Entire squadrons were wiped out in moments, leaving behind only empty space. "Fall back," Kyung-soo shouted over the comms. "Regroup and prepare for a counterattack." Jiho hesitated, torn between retreating and staying to fight. The Aegis was equipped with prototype weapons based on the designs from the vault, but they hadn't been tested in combat. Using them now could mean victory or disaster. "We can't run," Subin said urgently. "If we don't stop it here, it will keep coming. Earth won't stand a chance." "She's right," Minsu added. "This might be our only shot." Jiho made his decision. "Ready the prototype weapon. Target the Devourer's core. It's the only weak point we have." The Aegis broke away from the retreating fleet, positioning itself directly in the Devourer's path. The crew worked frantically, powering up the experimental cannon mounted on the ship's underside. Energy surged through the systems, causing the lights to flicker and alarms to blare. "Steady," Jiho commanded, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. On the main screen, the Devourer loomed closer, its tendrils reaching out like hungry serpents. "Firing solution locked," Subin announced, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Fire," Jiho ordered. The cannon unleashed a beam of pure antimatter, bright enough to blind anyone who looked directly at it. The beam struck the Devourer's core, causing a violent reaction. For a moment, it seemed like the attack had worked. The creature recoiled, its tendrils retracting as if in pain. But then, it retaliated. A wave of dark energy surged outward, slamming into the Aegis with devastating force. Alarms screamed as the ship shook violently, throwing the crew off balance. Sparks flew from consoles and smoke filled the air. "We've lost shields," Minsu shouted, scrambling to stabilize the systems. "Engines are failing!" Jiho gritted his teeth, refusing to give up. "Divert all power to the cannons. We need one more shot." Subin worked quickly, rerouting energy from non-essential systems. Her hands moved with precision, sweat dripping down her face. "Cannon recharged," she said finally. "But it's unstable. Another shot might overload the core. Then make it count," Jiho replied grimly. The Aegis lined up for another pass, dodging the Devourer's attacks with barely inches to spare. As they approached, Subin locked onto the target once more. "Firing!" The second beam struck true, piercing the Devourer's core and causing a massive explosion. The creature let out a deafening roar, its form collapsing inward before dissolving into nothingness. For a moment, there was silence. The crew stared at the empty space where the Devourer had been, unable to believe what they had just accomplished. But the victory came at a cost. The Aegis was heavily damaged, its systems on the verge of failure. Kyung-soo's voice came over the comms, tinged with both relief and suspicion. "You did it, somehow. But at what price?" Jiho ignored the question, focusing instead on assessing the damage. They had survived for now. But the battle had revealed cracks in the uneasy alliance with the Zenari. Trust was fleeting, and the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. As the remaining ships regrouped, Jiho turned to his crew. "We've proven ourselves today, but this isn't over. The Devourer may return, and when it does, we need to be ready." Subin nodded, determination in her eyes. "Then let's get to work." Minsu smiled faintly, already tinkering with the damage systems. "One step at a time, Captain." In the aftermath of the battle, humanity had taken its first real step back onto the galactic stage. But the scars of the past and the shadows of betrayal still lingered, waiting to resurface. The victory against the Devourer was short-lived, a fleeting moment of triumph in an endless war. Though the creature had been defeated, its presence lingered like a shadow over the galaxy. The Aegis limped back to the Zenari fleet, its hull scorched and systems barely functional. The crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage, but the strain of the battle weighed heavily on everyone. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars as if searching for answers among the endless void. Reports from scouts painted a grim picture. The Devourer's defeat had only delayed its advance, not stopped it entirely. Its essence, a swirling mass of dark matter, had scattered across the region, reforming into smaller entities that acted as harbingers of destruction. These fragments moved faster and struck with precision, targeting key locations within Zenari territory. Entire colonies were wiped out before help could arrive, leaving behind barren wastelands where life once thrived. Admiral Kyung-soo called for an emergency council meeting aboard his flagship, demanding humanity's full cooperation in planning their next move. The tension between the humans and the Zenari remained palpable, though both sides knew they couldn't afford to let old grievances get in the way of survival. "We underestimated the Devourer," Kyung-soo admitted during the meeting, his usual arrogance replaced by a rare note of humility. "It's more resilient than we thought. Even after your attack, Captain Jiho, it continues to adapt and grow stronger." Jiho listened carefully, his arms crossed over his chest. "If we want to stop it for good, we need to understand what it is and why it keeps coming back." Kyung-soo nodded reluctantly. "Agreed, but time is running out. My scouts report that the larger fragments are converging on a single point near the edge of our territory. If they merge again, the Devourer will return stronger than ever." Lieutenant Subin leaned forward, her sharp mind already working through the implications. "Where exactly are they heading? Can we intercept them before they combine?" Kyung-soo hesitated, glancing at his advisors before answering. "They're moving toward Earth's sector." The room fell silent. Jiho felt a chill run down his spine. The Devourer wasn't just attacking randomly. It was drawn to humanity. Whatever secrets lay buried in Earth's past, the creature seemed determined to uncover them. Back aboard the Aegis, Jiho gathered his senior officers to discuss their options. The crew was exhausted, their ship battered and bruised, but there was no time to rest. Humanity's very existence hung in the balance. "We have two choices," Jiho began, pacing the length of the briefing room. "We either join forces with the Zenari to stop the Devourer before it reaches Earth, or we prepare to defend ourselves alone." Subin frowned, studying the data on her tablet. "Joining forces might give us a better chance, but can we trust them?" "They've already shown they're willing to manipulate us." Minsu chimed in, his voice tinged with frustration. "And even if we do work together, their plan seems reckless. Luring the Devourer into a trap using decoy fleets sounds like suicide." Jiho sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, but sitting back and doing nothing isn't an option either. If the Devourer reaches Earth, billions will die." After a long pause, Subin spoke up. "There's another way. We use the prototypes we developed from the Vault's blueprints, not just to fight the Devourer, but to weaken it. Maybe we can disrupt its connection to dark matter, cutting off its power source." Minsu nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it could work. We'd need to modify the cannons further, though, and we'd have to get close enough to deploy the weapon without getting destroyed." Jiho considered their words carefully. It was a dangerous plan, but it offered a glimmer of hope. "All right, let's focus on upgrading the weapons. Minsu, I want you to lead the effort. Subin, coordinate with the Zenari to gather intelligence on the Devourer's movements. We'll strike when the time is right." As the crew worked around the clock to prepare for the upcoming battle, Jiho received a private transmission from an unknown source. The message was brief and cryptic. Captain Jiho, beware of Kyung-soo. He plans to sacrifice your ship to ensure the success of the mission. Jiho stared at the screen, his heart pounding. Was this a trick? A desperate attempt to sow discord between him and the Zenari? Or was it a genuine warning? He decided to confront Kyung-soo directly. Boarding a shuttle, he traveled to the Zenari flagship, requesting an urgent meeting. When he arrived, Kyung-soo greeted him with thinly veiled irritation. "What is it now, Captain?" the Admiral asked, his tone clipped. Jiho didn't mince words. "I received a message accusing you of planning to sacrifice the Aegis. Is it true?" Kyung-soo's expression hardened, but he didn't deny it outright. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying Jiho with calculating eyes. "Let me be clear. Sacrifices must be made if we are to survive. Your ship is expendable compared to the lives of billions." Jiho clenched his fists, anger simmering beneath the surface. "My crew isn't expendable. They're people with families, dreams, and futures. If you think I'll let you use them as cannon fodder, you're mistaken." Kyung-soo shrugged dismissively. "Then find another way. But don't expect me to save you when the time comes." The conversation ended abruptly, leaving Jiho seething. As he returned to the Aegis, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity couldn't rely on the Zenari. From now on, they would have to look out for themselves. Days turned into weeks as the crew prepared for the final confrontation. The modified prototype weapon was installed on the Aegis, its energy core glowing faintly with unstable power. Subin finalized the battle plan, mapping out potential routes to intercept the Devourer. Minsu double-checked every system, ensuring the ship was ready for the strain of combat. Finally, the day arrived. Scouts reported that the Devourer's fragments were merging near a dying star, their combined mass growing exponentially. The Zenari fleet assembled for the assault, positioning decoy ships to draw the creature's attention. The Aegis stayed hidden at the edge of the battlefield, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the battle began, chaos erupted across the void. The Devourer unleashed waves of dark energy, tearing through the decoy ships with ease. The Zenari fought valiantly, but their efforts barely slowed the creature's advance. Amidst the carnage, Jiho gave the order. "Move into position," he commanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil around him. "Target the core and fire on my mark." The Aegis surged forward, dodging attacks as it closed in on the Devourer. On the main screen, the creature loomed larger than ever, its tendrils writhing like living things. Subin locked onto the target, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the firing solution. "Ready," she announced. "Fire," Jiho ordered. The weapon unleashed a massive pulse of energy, striking the Devourer's core with pinpoint accuracy. For a moment, it seemed like the plan had worked. The creature shuddered violently, its form destabilizing. But then, it retaliated with overwhelming force. A wave of dark energy slammed into the Aegis, crippling its systems and sending the crew sprawling. Alarms blared as smoke filled the air. The ship was falling apart, its engines failing and structural integrity dropping rapidly. Jiho turned to his crew, his expression resolute. "Evacuate the ship," he said firmly. "Get to the escape pods, now!" Subin protested immediately. "Captain, we can't leave you here." "There's no time to argue," Jiho replied. "Someone has to stay behind and make sure the weapon finishes the job. Go." That's an order. Reluctantly, the crew obeyed, scrambling toward the escape pods as the ship continued to break apart. Jiho took the controls, guiding the Aegis on a collision course with the Devourer's core. Over the comm, Subin's voice pleaded with him one last time. "Captain, please reconsider." But Jiho cut her off. "Protect the crew, Lieutenant. That's all that matters now." With a final burst of speed, the Aegis rammed into the Devourer's core, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed both ship and creature. Light flooded the void, brighter than any star, before fading into darkness. When the dust settled, the Devourer was gone, or so it seemed. The surviving Zenari ships regrouped, searching for signs of the creature's return. Among the debris, they found the escape pods carrying the crew of the Aegis. Subin stared out at the empty space where the ship had vanished, tears streaming down her face. Jiho's sacrifice had saved them, for now. But the scars of the battle ran deep and the questions remained unanswered. What had truly created the Devourer? And why had it targeted humanity? As the survivors mourned their fallen captain, Subin vowed to honor his memory. The road ahead would be difficult, but humanity had proven itself capable of standing tall among the stars once more. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the echoes of Jiho's bravery lingered. A reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and sacrifice could change the course of history.